Hey guys, welcome to the channel and Moarhammer story time. That's right. I've just tried my hand at some voice acting. It's probably dreadful, but it was good fun and I'm going to put it together. And it's a perfect little piece to send your kids off to sleep to, I think. Basically chucking some armies together for the channel for more battle reports. Mostly using stuff I've got laying around that hasn't been built, put together, and using this channel as a reason to get these armies up to scratch, painted and out on the tabletop to do more battle reports. One of which is Khorne Demons. But what I noticed is I want to go, like I've said to you before, hardcore narrative of Warhammer. And we've already started that with the open war games, although I think we're about to start filming some Maelstrom war games, because I think that'd be good fun as well, and be able to tell a nice story with those. But I don't have all that much of my own fluff for my own armies. So what I did is I got the community involved and I put out like a mini kind of competition, and I call it a competition because people could have submitted like lots of different entries and I would have picked my favourite. However, in this instance that didn't quite happen. So Khorne Demons was one of the ones I chucked out there. Khorne Demons is a list I'm working on. Khorne Demons I'm very excited about because I didn't think they were all that good in 7th, and I'm not sure they're all that great in 8th, but they're significantly better than they were. So I wanted some fluff for my Khorne Demons, and a wonderful Patreon called John Phillips, I'm naming him on purpose, and there'll be a little credit thing to him, came up with this fluff. So I've tried to voice act it. My 5-year-old said it was scary, so I mean that counts, surely. Anyway, we'll dive into it. Hopefully there'll be some Khorne based images and you guys let me know what you think. I'm very excited to bring that army to the channel very soon.
Agriweld, Harker's Landing, Eastern Fringe. Status contested. Planet-wide civil unrest in progress. Adeptus Arbeit severely depleted and the planetary defence force is compromised.
The sacrifices have been going on since midnight and now dawn is in sight. To the chanting of hooded acolytes, the slaughter priest reads the 888 canticles of the Tome of Blood, while sacrificial victims, both willing and unwilling, are cut apart with industrial chain blades normally used to butcher grox carcasses. The bloody heads are arranged on the floor of the warehouse to form the unholy symbol of the blood god, and now the final verses are being read. And the sky turned dark, and the stars hid their faces in terror. First came the hunters of blood, the inevitable ones, the Bedlam pack. Khorne's hounds following the scent of battle. Their howls the cries of armies in rout. The warp, a rolling sea of emotions, the more intense emotions drawing entities to them as blood in the water draws the attention of oceanic predators.
No current pattern or clear tactical aim to current acts of violence. Reports from surviving Arbites of cult activity. Theoretical. Unrest is cover for as yet unidentified purpose and or is ritual in nature. Practical. Deploy Captain Acheron's second company to cleanse centres of cult activity. Librarious support required to counter threat of warp taint. We march from the crag. Aid Imperiata.
The acolytes beat their chests with their weapons as the heinous sermon continues. And with the huntsmen of the pack, marching under brazen banners to the sounding of deafening clarions, Khorne's chosen. The takers of skulls, the horned ones, the skinless slayers, the black blades, the janissaries of blood, urging on the hounds with shrieks and howls, ever eager to reap souls for the Lord of Blood, to paint their horns with the blood of the fallen. Stronger entities now, rage and conflict their meat and drink, a shoal gathering for a feeding frenzy.
Strike Force Acheron deployed from orbit. Armoured column Trojan in support. Atmospheric conditions deteriorating. Continent-wide storms developing.
The howls of the chain blades drown out the cries of their victims as the heretical cleric rants. Some rode steeds of bronze, beasts of living metal, whose hooves rung the earth with the thundering knell of doom, the knights of hate, the gore riders, the favoured ones. They were the fists of wrath that broke the enemy's ranks asunder and rode them down to red ruin. Others crude engines of hell, war machines forged from the weapons of those whose skulls were laid at the foot of the skull throne, smelted in the furnace of Khorne's hate that toppled the walls of countless fortresses and laid their defenders low. Thunder in the warp, flashes of lightning in every colour known to mortals and countless beyond their ken, the rumble of the cannonade, the drumming of hooves, light glinting from weapons and armour.
Acheron to all Astartes. Time to target 2 minutes 30. Prepare for immediate enemy contact. Execute with extreme prejudice. Honour the Primarch.
Now the host captains, the princes of butchery, the grim equerries, the one whose steel could not bite, the red swordsman, the carnificus Tenentio, each vying for their general's favour through acts of unspeakable carnage. Focus now, fixed on a beacon of suffering and conflict, dark points in the warp, ancient and unspeakable, apex predators around which the lesser entities gather.
Trajan to Acheron. We approach from the east, brother captain. Be advised, storm to the west.
And leading the host. Silence falling now as the congregation stilled, awaiting the naming of their dread lord, blood dripping from open wounds and well-used blades.
Thunderhawk Gladius to Acheron. 20 seconds to target. Courage and honour, brothers.
The slaughter priest builds to a shrieking crescendo. Now the acolytes weeping tears of blood at each utterance of their lord's many names. As in the physical world, so in the warp. Pulses of fury and a gathering tsunami of hatred from the uttermost depths of the void. A true leviathan rising to feed. An embodiment of war incarnate, many were the names it bore. The Fist of Corn, the Blooded One, the High-Handed Slayer. In the tongue of the jungle savages of the death world of Kush, it was known as Mkan, the Crushing. To the wretched hive dwellers of the Lazarus cluster, it was the Finisher. The Aldari called it the one who devours armies, and in the grunting tongue of the orcs, it was simply defeat. Countless were the servants of the Golden Throne that fell to its fury, from the highest champions of the Astartes to the lowliest cowering adept. All were offered as tribute to the blood god by its red hand. The sky wept blood at its passing. The ground itself screamed in horror, and worlds burned. At the gesture of its claws, the crimson ranks fell silent, and then a single cry of dark and bloody loyalty ran out. That echoed through the warp and was answered by a roar of approval from the brazen throat of he who sits upon the skull throne. Explosions, the warehouse roof crashing in under the weight of ceramite armoured forms, descending on jetpacks, clutching spather-patterned chainsaws and bolt pistols, or rappelling in on heavy gauge wires, bolt rifles barking, the second company bring the Emperor's wrath, killing before their boots even touch the surface of Harker's Landing. Heretic bodies exploding as mass reactive rounds punch home, limbs scattered by sweeps of chainsaws, the slaughter priest jerking and dancing as lightning courses through his body, shot from the armoured gauntlet of a grim-faced Astartes librarian, the mighty chief librarian Tigris himself. In a matter of seconds the warehouse is cleared, the blood of the fallen acolytes mixing with that of their victims.
Target cleared. Trajan, move to extraction point.
Captain Acheron removes his helmet and moves to stand next to Tigris, who stands over the smoking body of the slaughter priest. The heretic yet lives, but from a glance the captain can tell he will not be long for this life. Victory, librarian. We can move on to secondary targets. Tigris turns to the hulking Primaris captain, his brow furrowed with concern. Victory, brother captain? No. We were too late. Far too late. A chuckle draws our attention to the wretch dying at their feet. Despair, you mortals, for you live in the end of days, and the time of the galaxy's ending. The phalanx of rage has come against you. Blood for the blood god.
Trajan to Acheron. The storm's violence has increased. All spec regions are compromised. Visual targeting confirms movement in the storm cloud. Brother Captain, it's raining blood.
A round from Tigris' bolt pistol speeds the slaughter priest on his journey to hell. Gather your men, Acheron. Something approaches. A single cry rises from the west. A bellow, laughter, and then sound. Something across the Vox. All can hear it. All can feel it. And then it starts.
You fear me, mortal, and you are right to do so. But you and I are old friends, bonded in blood. I was here before your kind first drew breath, and I will be here long afterwards. I am there when the child stands with bleeding lip and clenched fist in raging defiance of his schoolyard tormentors. And I am there when the soldier fights to his last breath to defend a rag on a pole. I was there when they toppled King Priam's walls, and when the 300 made their stand at the hot gates. I howled out of the dark woods with painted tribesmen to hack the red crests down and take their eagle gods. And I was there when the long ships brought bearded axes to the Holy Island's shores. I stood on the hill beneath the dragon banner when the shield wall broke and the king fell, and I rode entire nations into the dust with the Khan's hordes. I made the king's men as stubble to their ironside swords, and I rejoiced when the eagles marched again at the Corsican's behest and ground the thrones of kings beneath their boot heels. I roared on Cemetery Ridge when the ranks of butternut and grey met the grape shot, and I made the sun turn black to honour Shaka's sons when they washed their spears in the red-coated invaders' bloods. I was in the mud when the whistles blew and the Maxim gun chattered, and I was on the steps when the grass was littered with the Panzer Rex. I warmed myself with napalm when the jungles burned and rode the tanks past oilfield pyres to topple the tyrant statues. I went with you in the void to see new worlds, new foes, and painted the galaxy red. I stalked through the darkness of old night and watched as worlds were consumed by nuclear fire. I gazed in adoration upon the face of the War Master and followed him home to terror. I beat my chest in rage when the angel broke the best of us across his knee and slammed the eternity gate in our faces. I begged the betrayer not to cease the slaughter of Scalathrax, and he heeded my call, breaking a legion asunder. I strode the surface of Cadia while the cases fell, and I howled in exultation when the despoiler split the galaxy in twain. And I will be there when the faithful overturn the golden throne, and I will lay the corpse god's skull at the foot of my dark lord's throne, as his justly deserved tribute. I am the Fist of Khorne, the blooded one, and the high-handed slayer. In this grim dark future that knows only war and the laughter of thirsting gods, can you hear me chuckling, mortal? Blood.